Hello Marisa, it's Christy in Calgary over here and I'm back with another installment of Where in Canada. In this particular series, I help South Africans choose where they would like to move to. I look at their unique situation, their job prospects, their life goals, their immigration plan, and then with the help of experts, I help them try and answer the question, where in Canada should I move to? For today's episode, we have Sandy. She is a front-end developer. She's 24 years old, has no dependents, and 2 years of work experience. Her ultimate goal is to find work as quickly as possible in a tech-friendly city in Canada. The issue she's facing is that she has to choose a city which is best suited to her skill set, as well as one that is immigrant-friendly. In today's video, we're going to review how to make her resume more attractive to Canadian employers, as well as name the best cities for work options, as well as review Canada's job landscape and see how various employment options are available in the tech sector. So today we have Jennifer, a fellow South African who is living here in Calgary. She has been working for the last 4 years in the recruitment industry, specifically in IT contracting. And let's just jump straight into the interview.
Any insights that you have after you reviewed Sandy's resume or CV that you've kind of had some chance to look over?
Yes, so I would like to start off. There's a number of things that we just need to know that is different when you're looking at a resume and when you're looking at a CV. A CV, obviously, you put your photo on there. It's your portfolio, basically, where a resume is just it's a rundown of who you are, what you can do, what you've done in the past, and your references. Very straightforward. So the number one thing is no headshots. Recruiters have to remain unbiased. Therefore, a resume that contains a photo will be discarded because of that reason, because of the bias that it creates. Another thing that I've noted is if you have an address in Canada, you can list it. If you don't, do not put it on, because if a recruiter sees an address at the top of your resume outside of the country, they automatically think that you're looking for sponsorship and it'll get discarded. Same goes for a telephone number. If you have a telephone number in Canada, list it. If you don't, omit it. It's not worth putting on because it'll just be discarded. And when I mean discarded, your entire resume will be deleted.
And does it make a difference, for instance, we're located in Alberta? Is there preference given to Albertan residents compared to anywhere else in another province?
No, in the tech industry itself, because we're so remote, we're working remote, there is no preference in which province you work, in which province you live. So for instance, if you live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, you can still land a job in Calgary working remote. And that is just because of what happened in COVID, where everyone went remote. And especially in the tech industry, software developers prefer to work remote.
Okay, wow, that's a huge change. I did not expect you to answer that, because even when I moved provinces, I was moving and I used my brother's address in province to get position.
Absolutely. And it usually depends on the type of industry you are in. If you are in the finance sector doing accounting, some of it may be remote, but in the tech industry itself, most developers work remote.
Okay, wow, that's super great. Sorry, I jumped in with another follow-up, but do you have any other insights for Sandy's resume?
Sure. A resume should always be accompanied by a cover letter. And a cover letter is something you write relevant to the job that you are applying for. It shouldn't be long. It should be straightforward, one paragraph, quick and easy. And then when you look at the resume, remove all irrelevant experience. If experience is not relevant to the job you're applying to, remove it and change your resume as you apply for different positions. Don't use one standard resume and just send it out. Be tactful about it. Be strategic about sending out resumes and cover letters.
And is it important that you even use the keywords from the posting in your resume?
Correct. So it's very important to use a recognizable font, because what happens when you apply to recruitment agencies, and those are prevalent in Canada, recruitment agencies, your resume gets put into a system, and making it a searchable resume for recruiters for other postings as well, for other jobs, not just the one you're applying for. So making sure that your resume is typed in a recognizable format, no frills, no pictures, no GIFs, and then the keywords, like you said, those are important because recruiters search keywords. The first thing on your resume is then your technical skills. Okay. That you need to list separate. So when I say technical skills, referring to the technical, the IT field, I mean your programming languages. You want to include that. You want to include what cloud experience you have, system knowledge, what kind of servers you've worked with. Those kind of things you want to list as your technical skills before you list your work experience, because those contain the keywords, right? These are the ones, the Javas, the SQL servers, the Mac OS, all of those keywords are very important when we search your resume, when we search for a candidate.
And it's so interesting because like I work at, I've mentioned to you before, like film and TV, and it's like the opposite. Like I have a very particular resume for one thing and then for the other. So
correct, yeah, absolutely,
industry specific.
Very industry specific. And then, sorry, for experience, this is kind of the last thing on the list is in the IT world, especially developers, what we want to see is you listing how you use your skills to solve a business problem. What I mean by that is you should list the problem, the outcome, your key responsibilities, and then your tech stack. Tech stack meaning the tech you used to solve the problem. And then if you did any projects during your university years, you note that as well, and also note whether it was a prototype or whether it was a live environment. That's very important because all your skills and your experience count, but once you gain Canadian experience, your experience in South Africa counts much more, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. So it's, sorry, is it your Canadian experience counts more, your South African experience counts more?
Your South African experience counts once you have Canadian experience.
Oh, interesting.
Correct. So it basically validates your experience in Canada, validates your experience back home.
Okay, wow, that's super interesting. Yeah. Okay. So looking at Sandy's resume again, or CV, are there any skills that you think Sandy should be working on to increase her employability in Canada?
Absolutely. Two things I see off the bat here. Cloud service. So the AWS, Amazon Web Service, and Azure. Those are the two things she can work on. And then also there is an online community called GitHub, GITHUB. And this is an online community where software developers showcase their work, similar to like photographers would showcase their portfolios. And this is used a lot in the tech industry by recruiters, by prospective employers to go see what they can do. So it's basically their portfolio. So I would recommend I do see she has one, but to keep updating that.
Random cut in here for a second. Jennifer and I had a discussion after this interview talking about professional resume/CV writers, those people who help rewrite your resume or CV for a Canadian audience. I would love to actually hear from you. Have you ever used this service and did you find it useful? Just drop me a comment below.
Let's transition a little bit to looking at cities and geographies. You recommended, it's interesting, you said a lot of it's remote now, but are there any cities or regions that are, great for someone who doesn't have a ton of connections to get a job? I would love to hear if you have any insights on that.
Sure. So the top three cities are obviously Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver. Toronto more leaning on the financial sector. So your big five banks are located in Toronto. So if you were to be a software developer, working for a financial institution, that will be your in. Then Vancouver is the big IT companies, and then Calgary obviously is oil and gas, but we overlook so many other industries in Calgary. We've got a great aviation industry, for instance, with WestJet being local. So don't overlook Calgary in that sense. But like I said, being remote work so prevalent these days, you can basically work from anywhere for any industry, for any company. However, in order to stand out as a newcomer to Calgary, as a junior developer, you want to be flexible for on-site work. So if you're applying for a job, having that flexibility will make you stand out above the rest.
I've been in Calgary for a while, and you've also been here 4+ years. The industry has really changed, or the province's outlook towards the tech industry. It's really the last 4 years, really become knowledgeable, hey, it's taking off. So I'm so glad that you mentioned it. It wasn't just Toronto and Vancouver, that's it.
No. And even in Ottawa, we keep thinking Ottawa is only the government sector, but it's not. They've also got different sectors that is booming. And just keep your world open, your eyes open for everything. There's so many possibilities in any city. At the end of the day, the sectors may sometimes steer you towards a specific city. But like I said, remote work is so prevalent at the moment.
If you were to choose, knowing what you know, would there be a city that you choose? And this is the field that you're in. I'm kind of curious.
Honestly, I am biased towards Calgary, but for reasons outside of just the industry I'm in. Calgary is definitely one of the top, and then my second would definitely be Toronto for the IT sector.
I sent through some questions, but you brought some really great points about kind of explaining the landscape of IT work and how it's different from South Africa to Canada. Could you highlight the differences between the two?
Sure, and this is not only in the IT sector, but in corporate professionals, meaning accountants, the engineers, all of these other sectors also touch on these points. So you get two different kinds of employment in Canada. You get permanent employment, which means you are an employee of that company and you are governed by employment standards with that company. Then you get temporary employment, which we call contract worker. And under that, there's two different options for you as well. As a term employee, what we call, that is an employee of an agency, or an incorporated contractor, which is you're still part of the agency of record, yet you are a business by yourself. You invoice, you still supply services, and that is more prevalent in the IT sector, where senior developers are more likely to be incorporated because of their rate, because of their business write-offs, all of those kind of things, tax advantages. So temporary employment, meaning contract work, is a set timeline of work. So you get a project, you do that project, you finish, you move on to a different client or to a different group or a different team. So it is a set contract and utilized so often in Canada that the industry, the IT industry, relies a lot on contract workers. And that doesn't mean that if your contract is up, that you are out of a job, you don't have an income, nothing. You have two options. You can either move to a different company or a different team, or you can apply for EI, which is your employment insurance, similar to South Africa's UIF. And that will cover your income for a duration until you find something else. So a lot of people are very scared of contract work, but it is not so scary. It is a lot. It's used by South Africans, especially when they arrive in Canada, to get that first 6 months of experience in order to make their South African experience count. And then one last thing, is also used by senior types of roles in order to get that tax advantages, to get that higher pay rates, those kind of things.
And this is so interesting that you mentioned this, because there's a little part of me that's like, because I just actually chatted with an immigration consultant.
Okay, that's going to be in the next video. I actually speak to an immigration consultant here in Canada, and we're going to review Sandy's unique situation. So if you are curious about what that looks like, make sure you hit the subscribe button below.
And she gave some insights as well for Sandy. And there's a little part of me, I was like, like obviously Sandy will have to do her own research on this, but I'm not sure like if getting a job with regular employment terms is what's required for certain visas, or like if you're a permanent resident, maybe some things are more available to you as well. Do you have any insights on that at all?
I don't have that much insight on it, to be honest. We do, however, have a lot of resources on our books that are on work permits or are permanent residents. Mm-hmm. So a lot of agencies don't sponsor, and I don't think it is something that anyone will really want to do, is do that sponsorship, go through the Lima, all of those kind of things. But once you are in Canada and you've got an open work permit or permanent residency, which is also similar to an open work permit, you can work wherever you want to. There is no downfall taking temporary employment versus permanent employment. Okay,
that's a really great point to make. Thank you. I appreciate that. Is there anything else that you'd add for Sandy? I mean, she is still pretty young.
Yeah.
I would say someone out of my 30s, I'm like in your early 20s and you're out of university working a couple of years. Is there anything that you would add for insights for her? Especially as she's wanting to come out to Canada?
Sure. The last thing I would add is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is going to be your main source of network generating leads. So making sure you follow people in your industry, you share posts, you make sure your LinkedIn is updated. Back home, LinkedIn wasn't that much utilized as much as it is in Canada. So having a LinkedIn presence is very, very important in the IT industry.
Yeah, totally. I would say not across the board. There's some industries it doesn't affect, but yeah, in Canada, LinkedIn Absolutely. Is huge. People are on there. It's like Facebook pretty much, but for your work, and people are on pretty regularly.
That's it.
Next question for you. How many of you guys have a serious LinkedIn profile? I'd love to hear if you found that it's helped you in your job search once you moved over to Canada, or if not, you can drop me a comment down below. Okay, I just want to say huge thank you to Jennifer. She had a amazing insights and was so helpful. And I personally love it when South Africans help other South Africans out. It just warms my heart. In the next episode, we're speaking to Rashenka, an immigration consultant and a friend of mine. She's going to be speaking about Sandy's unique situation and what she needs to do to be able to get into the country as soon as possible. And last but not least, if you're interested in seeing my day-to-day life, make sure to follow me at Christy in Calgary on Instagram. And there you'll get to see pictures of walks that I do in the neighborhood or places that I travel to in different points of the province. And, you know, once in a while, a picture of me and my very cute family, if I say so myself. See you next time.